In this video, I will show you how to create, read, update, and delete contacts using Flutter and SQLite Database. So here we have the list of contacts. We can create a new contact, and we can update the contact details. And to delete the contact, we can click on the delete button. Then in the next video, I will show you how to create and update contacts using a bottom dialog and a page. So let's click here, then let's click on the plus button, and this time we have a bottom dialog. Let's click on the item, and we have a bottom dialog. Let's click here again, then plus, and this time we have a page. Let's click on this item, and we obtain this page. Also, I will show you how to create the executable file of this application and how to install it on Android devices. You can find the video link in the description. Now let's create a new project. Then next, let's provide the project name. We can call it Contact Manager. And let's provide the location. Let's select Android and iOS. Then create. So we obtain this project, and in the lib folder we have this main file. Let's run this file, and let's go to the emulator. So we obtain this default application with this button. Let's stop the application, and let's install the package SQLite. So we can go to the console, and let's execute the command flutterpub add sqflite. So the package is installed correctly, and we can find it in the file pubspec.yaml. So here we can see that we have this new package, which is SQLite. Now let's create a model that allows us to read and write the data in the database. So we need to create a new class, and you can create it in the folder models. So in the lib folder, let's create a new folder, and let's call it models. Then let's create a new class. So let's add a new Dart file, and let's call it contact. Then let's create the contact class. So in this class we can define the ID, which is the primary key. Then we have the name, the email address, the phone number, and the address. This is the constructor. We need to create this method that allows us to convert the contact into a map that we will save in the database. And we need this method that will convert the map into a contact. So we need this method to convert the data of the database into a contact. Now let's create a class that allows us to read and write the contacts in the database. So let's create a new folder in the lib folder. So we can call it services or helpers, or also we can call it repositories. In this video, I will call this folder repositories. Then let's create a new class. We can call it contact repository. Then let's create the class. Then let's create a new method that allows us to open the database. So we can create the method getDatabase, and it is private. So here we need to open the database. This is the name of the database file, and this is the method that will be executed to create the database. So to create the database, we can use this SQL query, and you can create a table called contacts. So in the contacts table, we need the ID, which is the primary key, and it is auto-incremental. Then we need the name, the email address, the phone number, and the address. We can also insert initial data. So here we will insert 2 rows. Then let's import the SQLite package. Then let's create another method that allows us to read the contacts from the database. So we can create the method getContacts that will return a list of contact objects. Let's add the package. So in this method, we will open the database. Then we will read the contacts from the contacts table. So contacts that we have here is the table that we created just here. And the result that we have here is a list of maps. So we need to convert this list of maps into a list of contact objects. So we can call result.map, and for every map, we will convert it into a contact using the method fromMap. Then let's create additional methods to create, update, and delete contacts. So we can create the addContact. It requires one contact. So we will open the database and we will insert the contact into the contacts table. Then here we will update the contact. So this is the contact that we want to update. We need to open the database. Then we need to update the contact having the ID that is available in the contact object. And to delete the contact, we can create this method. It requires the contact ID. So we will open the database and we will delete the contact having this ID. So here we can see that to read the contacts, to create contacts, to update and to delete contacts, we will call the method getDatabase that is defined just here. And each time we call this method, we will call the method openDatabase. So this method will open a single connection with the database even if we call it multiple times. So if we put the cursor here, then let's scroll down. We can see that when single instance is set to true, which is the default value, a single connection with the database will be created. So we can call this method multiple times and a single connection with the database will be created. Now let's create the contact page. So this is a page. Let's create it in the pages folder. Let's create a new file. And let's call it contact page. Then let's create a stateful widget. And let's call it contact page. Let's add the package. So here let's click on more actions and let's select the material package. Then in the state, let's create a list of contacts. So this is a list of contact objects and we can call it contacts and it is initially empty. Let's add the package. Then let's create a method that allows us to read the contacts from the database. So we can create this method loadContacts. So here we can create this variable and it is equal to contact repository dot getContacts. Then we can save the contacts into this state. Then let's call this method when we initialize the widget. So here we need to override the method initState and we need to call the method loadContacts. Then let's create the widget. So let's delete this statement and let's return a scaffold. So we can return this scaffold. So in the up bar we can display the title contacts and in the body we can return a list view that we will fill using the data of the contacts list. So for every contact that we have in the contacts list, we will display a card. So this card contains a list tile. So in this list tile we have a circular avatar and we will display a text which is the first letter of the name of the contact. Then we have the title which is the contact name and we have the subtitle which is the email address of the contact. And in the trailing we will display an icon button with the delete icon. So when we click on the list tile, this method will be executed. So here we need to edit the contact details. And when we click on the delete button, this method will be executed, and here we need to delete the contact. Now let's display the contact page in the main file. So when we run the application, we will display the widget My App, which is defined just here. So here we can delete the theme, and we can replace My Home page with the contact page. So let's delete this, and let's replace it with contact page. We can also remove the debug banner. Let's run the application. So we obtained this application, and you can see that we have two contacts in the list view. So to make this application better, we can add a background color. So let's go to the contact page. And let's display the list view into a container. So here we can make a right click, then show context actions. And let's wrap the widget into a container. Then let's add a background color. So we can add a padding and a decoration that allows us to set a gradient background color. Let's refresh the application. And now we have this background color. Now let's create a widget that allows us to create contacts. So we will display this widget into a dialog. So let's create a new folder. And let's call it widgets. Then let's create a new Dart file. And let's call it contact form widget. Then let's create a stateful widget. And let's call it contact form widget. Let's add the material package. Then in the state we need to create a key that we will associate to the form. So this key allows us to check if the data of the form is valid or not. Then let's create fields that allow us to read the form data. So we need the name, the email address, the phone number, and the address. Then let's create the widget. So let's delete this. And let's return this scrollable widget that contains the form. So we can set the key of the form to form key that we defined just here, and it allows us to validate the form data. Then in this form we have this column that contains several text fields. So this text field will be used for the contact name. We have the validation condition, and when we save the form data, we will save the value of this text field into the field name that we defined just here. Then we need another text field for the email address. This text field is for the phone number. Then we have this text field for the address. Then we have this row that contains two buttons. So this is the first button, it is the cancel button, and when we click on cancel, we will close the widget. And when we click on the second button, which is the save button, we need to save the contact details. Now let's create the save method. So we can create it just here. So in this method, we will check if the form data is valid or not. If the form data is valid, then we will save the form data into these fields. So when we call the method save, the method onSave of the different text forms will be executed, and this method allows us to save the content of the text field into the corresponding field. Then we will create a new contact. So let's add the package. Then we need to save the contact, so we can use this repository. Then to close the widget, we can call navigator.offContext.pop. And here we can pass the value true that allows us to check if the contact has been created or not. So if the contact form widget returns true, this means that the contact has been added, and in this case we need to read the contacts again from the database. But if we click on the cancel button, which is this button, we will close the widget and we will return nothing. This means we will return null. Now let's use this widget to create a dialog. So let's go to the contact page. And here let's create a new method that allows us to create a dialog. So we can create the method showContactFormDialog that will create a new dialog. So the dialog is of type alert dialog, and the content will be the contact form widget that we created. So if the result is not null, this means that the result is true, then we need to read the contacts again from the database. Now let's create a floating button in the scaffold that allows us to call this method. So this is a floating button that has the add icon, and when we click on it we will call the method showContactFormDialog. Let's refresh the application. And now we have this button. Let's click on it. And we obtain this dialog. So if we click on save, we have the validation errors. Let's fill the form. Then save. And here we can see that we have this new contact. Now I will show you how to update the contact details. So we will update the contact form widget to allow us to update the contact details. So let's add an optional contact field in the widget, and let's add it to the constructor. If we provide the contact object to this class, this means that we will update the contact details. Otherwise, we will create a new contact. Now let's initialize the widget with the contact details if we have the contact object. So just here, let's override the method initState, and let's initialize the name, the email address, the phone number, and the address using the data of the contact if it is not null. Otherwise, if the contact is null, then we will initialize these fields with an empty string. Then let's update the save method. So here when we create the contact, we will set the ID of this contact to the ID of the contact if it is not null. So let's delete null, and let's replace it with the ID of the contact of the widget if it is not null. If the contact is null, then the ID will be null. Then let's check if the contact of the widget is null or not. If it is null, then we will create a new contact. Otherwise, we will update the contact details. So let's update this statement. And let's check if the contact of the widget is null or not. If it is null, we will create the contact. Otherwise, we will update it. So now this widget is able to create new contacts and also to update the contact details. Let's go to the contact page. And let's update this method. So we need to provide it with an optional parameter, which is the contact object. Then let's update the title. So if contact is null, the title will be add contact, otherwise it will be edit contact. And let's pass this object to the contact form widget. Then let's call this method when we click on the list items. So let's go to the scaffold, then list view. Then here we have the list tile. And when we click on the list item, we need to edit the contact details. So we need to call the method showContactFormDialog, and we need to provide it with the contact, which is defined just here. Let's refresh the application. Then let's update this contact. So let's click on this item and let's update the email address, for example. Then save. And here we can see that the email address is updated correctly. Now I will show you how to delete contacts. So when we click on the delete icon of the list tile, we need to delete the contact. So just here, we can call the method delete contact and we can provide it with the ID of the contact that we want to delete. Now let's create this method. So we can create it just here. So in this method we can call delete contact of the contact repository, then we can reload the list of contacts. Let's refresh the application. And let's click on this delete button. And you can see that the contact has been deleted. In the next video I will show you how to create and update contacts using a bottom dialog and a page. So if we click here, then plus, now we have a bottom dialog. And if we click here again, then plus, we obtain this page. Also, I will show you how to create the executable file of this application and how to install it on Android devices. You can find the video link in the description.